To buy gold, in-game items, or boosting services in Diablo 4, check out the links in the description and use code NICO for 5% off. Hello and welcome back to another Dare to Game video. Today we're playing Diablo 4, or at least we're talking about it, and I'm going to be going through and ranking all of the classes that you can play as in Diablo 4, at least at the time of making this video. Presumably, maybe somewhere down the road they'll be adding more, which would be cool. But in any case, let's just go through it. I was going to do a tier list, but then I realized there weren't really enough to do that, and given the fact that each one of these has strengths, and so if you're playing as a team, like a multiplayer team, obviously you can really specialize and make each one really important in its own way. But in Diablo 4, it's really mostly a DPS thing. Almost every class kind of boils down to just DPS. So it felt a little bit easier just to rank them than to put them into different tiers. Now that being said, I ranked this trying to not be emotional because it does not match my personal preference at all. It's actually kind of reversed for what the classes I personally like. And I'll rank it based on which one I like best at the end of the video. But I tried to rank it very objectively just based on how much time it takes to put into it to get it to that point where you're just a DPS boss. Because all of these classes do work perfectly well if you focus on them and make it a specialized build and really figure out what makes it tick. You can make any of them super overpowered. I'm going to rank them just based on that effectiveness of how overpowered they can be, how quickly you can do it, how user-friendly they are, how forgiving they are, how like pros versus cons, all that sort of stuff. So let's just start it off with the best one, because I'm going to be ranking them from best to worst today, because I felt like that was a fun way to do it, because it's not usually how I do it. So we'll start off with the number one spot. And at number one, we have the Necromancer. So ranked at the top of the list, the Necromancer stands out for numerous compelling reasons. Traditionally, this class has maintained a devoted fanbase in Diablo games, but in Diablo 4, both existing and new players can enjoy a fulfilling experience with this class. With the ability to summon minions as allies in combat, the Necromancer offers a secure and supportive playstyle. Less experienced players need not fear delving into the world of Diablo 4 while they are still acquainting themselves with its intricacies, as the minions function as a protective force, akin to a group of different players that you might normally play with if you were playing it multiplayer. This grants players the freedom to contemplate their next move or concentrate on evading the boss's attacks, while the skeletal warriors, or your minions, deal the damage for you. Conversely, veteran players can leverage the Necromancer's diverse toolkit to construct more intricate builds that demand strategic thinking and attentiveness. While the class is straightforward to grasp, the Necromancer yields formidable damage output against single or multiple foes. Supplementing the minion's offensive capabilities, players can detonate corpses, inflict area of effect debuffs, and hamper enemies in other ways like that. They can also wield an ethereal scythe for direct attacks. Additionally, the Necromancer possesses damage mitigation and healing abilities, along with crowd control skills that benefit their group. In summary, the Necromancer excels as a potent class, offering ease of play, robust survivability, and a wealth of utility tools. And taking the number 2 spot, we have the Sorcerer. So following closely behind the Necromancer, the Sorcerer claims a position among the top classes in Diablo 4. While the destructive power of magic often dominates in fantasy games, it is not solely the Sorcerer's potency that secures its second place here. Undeniably, the Sorcerer excels in terms of pure damage. The classes might become apparent even at level 1 and continues to escalate as the character progresses through the game. You'll see skeletons vanish with a mere cast of chain lightning in the early areas, or you'll witness a boss being crushed by the four-headed Hydra in later levels, and that's going to emphasize the Sorcerer's remarkable scaling power. Simultaneously, as the Sorcerer hurls fireballs, the class presents commendable crowd control tools that enhance the player's experience. By employing ice magic, enemies can be slowed down, and the Inferno Ultimate can be cast to immobilize foes. Nevertheless, this considerable power comes with a trade-off, even though it's a minor one, as new players must learn to manage the Sorcerer's mana, which serves as a downside to this class, albeit a rather small one once you get used to it. Despite its impressive damage output and utility, the Sorcerer lacks sufficient tools for survival. The class provides either barriers or a teleportation skill for repositioning, yet these alone are insufficient to shield players from severe repercussions when confronted by a boss. Given the class's fragility, players must exercise caution and practice to maintain a safe distance from enemies. Nonetheless, those who choose the Sorcerer will discover a formidable class that rewards dedication and perseverance. So, coming in at number 3, we have the Rogue. So, claiming the third spot on this list is the Rogue, a master of shadows whose exceptional damage output sets them apart in Diablo 4. However, this class presents a considerable challenge for players, especially new players. The Rogue excels in dealing critical damage and swiftly dispatching enemies. For instance, the Twisting Blade build showcases the class's ability to inflict massive damage upon groups or even bosses. Similarly, while utilizing long-range weapons, the Rogue's attacks can be imbued with various effects ranging from area of effect damage to applying damage over time stacks, making them exceptional against most enemy types. Furthermore, players can tailor their build to capitalize on the Rogue's adaptability, seamlessly transitioning between melee and ranged attacks to effectively engage enemies in diverse situations. Thus, the Rogue appeals to players who relish swiftly annihilating foes with stylish maneuvers. However, it should be noted that this class poses significant challenges. Due to its vulnerability to incoming damage, the Rogue necessitates meticulous planning and mechanical proficiency for players to maximize its potential. While a few escape abilities may be available depending on the chosen build, players must remain focused and attentive to avoid being easily overwhelmed by surrounding enemies. Importantly, the Rogue lacks robust crowd control skills. The structure of this class's skill tree often requires players to make a trade-off, sacrificing damage potential for less potent skills that can apply debuffs to slow enemies. As a Rogue, one must consistently prioritize maximizing damage output. Overall, the Rogue offers unparalleled damage potential but demands skill and strategy from its players. So at number 4, we ranked the Druid, and so this one is definitely a beast of its own, really. So the Druid, on one hand, boasts a skill tree that supports a wide range of diverse builds. Whether players prefer engaging in combat with elemental spells and summoning hurricanes, or transforming into a werewolf or a werebear to slash through demons, the Druid skills offer exceptional flexibility to accommodate various playstyles. However, on the other hand, despite the numerous ways to play as a Druid, achieving comparable performance to other classes can be challenging. As a spellcaster, the Druid initially lacks the same potency as the Sorcerer, and as a melee-focused werewolf or werebear, the class doesn't possess the same raw power as the Rogue. Another significant hurdle for the Druid is effectively managing their class resources, or spirit points. Unlike automatic generation, the means available to players for improving this aspect are quite limited, relying on elements such as gear, aspects, and gems to aid in generating spirit. Once players become familiar with the Druid's mechanics, encounters become more manageable. The class offers solid skills to handle groups of enemies and possesses a few noteworthy abilities for single target fights. New players may even feel invincible in certain situations due to the Druid's tools for mitigating damage. While the Druid can shine in endgame scenarios, overall, this class does not demonstrate superiority in any of the elements considered on this ranking. Finally, coming in at number 5, we actually have my favorite class in the game, the Barbarian. So, taking the final position on this list is the Barbarian, a well-established archetype within the series. In Diablo 4, this class faithfully fulfills its intended role. Notably, the Barbarian has never been renowned for its damage dealing prowess, both within and beyond the Diablo game. Nevertheless, when compared to the Druid, the Barbarian's damage output doesn't scale as impressively as the shapeshifting class. However, this doesn't imply that the Barbarian is incapable of dealing significant damage. The Barbarian excels in inflicting passive damage, particularly through builds such as the Thorn build, which capitalizes on the class's ability to employ incoming damage against enemies. The Barbarian possesses an arsenal of powerful tools to mitigate damage and to heal the character, ensuring that players can progress through the game without fear of easily succumbing to foes. Furthermore, the class compensates for its relatively lower damage output with straightforward and efficient skill usage. Players can simply leap into a group of enemies, utilize one of the class's various shout skills to either mitigate damage or enhance their attacks, and then unleash a whirlwind of devastation with the aptly named Whirlwind ability. Once the class's resource, or Fury, is depleted, a short period of basic attacks is sufficient to replenish it and repeat the process. However, it is worth noting that the Barbarian's straightforward playstyle limits the variety of available options. Regardless of player preference, the Barbarian essentially boils down to engaging demons head-on, be it with an axe or bare hands. The class's capacity to provide support to teammates is largely confined to taunting enemies and absorbing damage as a stalwart tank. But that's it for the official ranking based on how good they are or how quickly you can get to the point of being a DPS god. That being said, my personal preference, which I said I would rank, and I've hinted at so far through the video, is as follows. My favorite is the Barbarian. I love this class. It's simple, straightforward. I love the tankiness of it. I love the forgiveness that you have in taking hits from your enemies, and I love how cool and flashy some of the moves look and how effective it can be if you utilize it right. My second favorite is the Rogue. It's definitely difficult to use. It's got a very high skill gap to it, but the ridiculous overpowered nature of it and the ability to switch back and forth really, really rapidly between ranged and melee attacks makes it a ton of fun to play with, and with enough time and practice, insanely good. So the Rogue takes the number 2 spot for me. It's my second favorite one. My third favorite of these classes is the Sorcerer. It's a glass cannon, but I play glass cannon builds all the time. Hell, I love the Rogue, so the Sorcerer isn't far behind there. The attacks are pretty insane. You can do some of the coolest looking stuff in the game, in my opinion, just because some of the ultimate things you can do with the Sorcerer are crazy. You have to manage mana, but it's not that big of a deal. It's pretty easy to do. The Sorcerer is forgiving. It's got crazy high damage potential. All you have to do is make sure you're not getting hit, and it's going to be a really good one. Number 4 for me is the Necromancer. It's definitely easy to play as. It's the one that I recommend to noobs and people who have not been able to get good because it is super easy to play as. The minions make it kind of a joke. If you focus on them at all and try to work around that, you can kind of just avoid most of the enemies in the game, and your minions will eventually kill them. You don't have to try running back in to deal damage because they'll constantly be doing it for you. So the Necromancer can be crazy. If you put the time and effort into making the build insane, you can make it insane. Or you can kind of just stumble through the game and let your minions fight the battles for you. So the Necromancer's fun to play as. It's very forgiving, and I think if I'm recommending things for new players, I either recommend the Necromancer or the Barbarian. And finally, the last one, in my opinion, is the Druid. I don't much care for the Druid class. I've only played it a little, so maybe I'd like it a lot more if I got really into it, but I personally just don't care for the Druid that much. I think it's got a weird gameplay balance. I don't think that even with specialized builds, it rewards you, even as much as the Barbarian does, because if you specialize the builds in that, you can really feel like you're making a huge difference based on your choices. The Druid just feels kind of half-assed. Now, maybe it'll get buffed, or maybe they'll put some focus on it in an update, because maybe they'll realize not a lot of people like playing as the Druid. But me personally, I'm not much of a fan of it. So that is where I'm going to end the video. I hope you enjoyed this and found it useful, or at least a little entertaining or something. But that's all for today. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching another Dare to Game video. If you liked this video, please leave a like and a comment. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the channel. If you like my content and would like to support this channel, consider becoming a member today for as little as $1.99 a month. It makes a huge difference. But in any case, thanks for watching and have a nice day. I'll see you next time.